Now, when we left off the last time, we were talking about what the astronauts went through and what it took for them to space travel. On this particular series, on part two, we're going to look at the time travel in fourth dimension. So we're going to define time travel as the action of traveling through time into the past or the future. So why do we want to time travel? As fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional, and eternal immortal beings, we ought to want to time travel. Time travel is the fourth dimension. That's what we have to start off. First of all, we know the third dimension is space travel. So let's remember that. Okay, now the fourth dimension is the intermediate field between the pure electronic fifth dimension and the phenomenal third dimension, which is the material and physical plane. The fourth dimension is the middleman, if you will, that's going to help us to obtain higher dimensions, namely the fifth dimension, and experience those things in the fifth dimension in the third dimension, or the material physical plane. Now, all holons, fourth dimensional etheric bodies, that is, form a vast interconnected web that is connected with every other holon through electronic lines of force. But I want to make sure that we understand we have and are connected with each of our holons from third, fourth, and fifth dimension. How do we get connected? Through our thoughts, through electronic lines of force. So these electronic lines of force are also interwoven into the planet holon. So we're communicating not only with ourselves on different planes, but also with Mother Earth and her different planes. She also is has the third dimension, which is the material realm that we're living on the planet. She has fourth and fifth and above. She also has electronic lines of force and thought through her side banks and through her noosphere. We're going to talk about it. Life as we know it is built up from energy to electricity to electronics or electronic lines of force. This is what controls thought. This is why it's important for us to know or to be aware, I should say, of our thoughts. Our thoughts are very key to where we're going to time travel. So we won't be time traveling if we're not thinking about anything, though. If we do time travel, it'll be somewhere we don't want to go. And that's considered loss, a lost time traveler. If you're experiencing things that you don't want to experience, that's because you are a lost time traveler and your electronic lines of force are not where it should be at the time it should be, and everything has to line up synchronistically. We're going to learn how to time travel, and this is what this series is all about. So we have the capabilities to time travel, but what can hinder the strengths of our electronic lines of force? How difficult is it for us to hold a thought? And we can answer that amongst our own selves. But this is the thing, and we're going to look at this. Can electromagnetic waves affect the brain? Yes. We must look at it and consider these possibilities because we're surrounded by waves. Electromagnetic waves your brain sends out are very light and not far-reaching at all. So within a feet, it loses all potency and it is easily distorted, but can also be amplified by any other electromagnetic field nearby. We're getting a lot of electromagnetic energy around the planet, and that energy is coming in. Now, what should we be doing with that energy? Is this the amplified energy that we should be using for our thought processes? I should dare to say yes, because if we're not using it, we're going to lose it. So let's go to the radio waves. There are radio waves that can affect our brain thought processes from the cell phone. They can affect the metabolism of a person's brain, according to a study in the Journal of the American Medical Association. So we are to protect our health from cell phone radiation. So let's go under to where it says under the worst circumstances. Exposure to electromagnetic fields can cause severe, serious effects in the brain. Studies have shown that it can change the flow of blood in the brain and turn off neuron groups. But we don't want to be sitting in an ocean full of electromagnetic waves, and then we're not doing anything with those waves. Then yes, it's going to change the flow of the blood in the brain, and it will turn off very important neuron groups. And what are neurons? Neurons are those information systems that tell cells what to do. We don't want that to be turned off now, do we? 10 things an electromagnetic field can do to your brain. It can shed the DNA. It can stimulate its growth of neurons. Okay, that's one I'm interested in. It can train you off food and water. That's a good one too. I mean, because if there is no food and no water, which it could be a good possibility of that situation happening on this planet due to famine and the destruction of crops because of the weather, we may need to know how to live without food and water for a certain amount of time. Okay, it can also make you spin in circles. Now, we don't want to spin in circles. Okay, it can pacify you completely. Now, we don't want to be pacified so completely until we don't know who we are. We don't know what our name is, or we can't move, or we can't do anything like that. So I don't know if I like pacify. Okay, so number 5, alter your morality. We really don't want that one. We want to keep our morality. We don't want anybody telling us and operating us from some council somewhere with electromagnetic controls and altering our, putting subliminal suggestions to our brain, right? That's how they can alter your morality. Now, take out your power of speech, but leave your ability to sing. Now, we really don't want that. Number 3, induce panic, disorientation, and deep fear. We can X that out too. We're not going to start time traveling in these type of auspices, all right? And then cause seizures and death. Now, we really don't want that. And then make you see ghosts. Now, some of y'all are seeing ghosts without the electromagnetic stuff. But the thing about it is, there is some positive and negatives to electromagnetic fields, to the brain. We have to determine what are we going to do with this extra energy, all right? It's coming on the planet. It's in the solar system. There's nothing much we can do about it. And that brings us into the purpose of a chrononaut. Chrononaut. What is a chrononaut? Let's first say chronomancy is the science and art of fourth dimensional time considered as a whole system. Science is knowledge and art is practice. One who studies chronomancy is called a chrononaut. So what do we know about chronomancy? It's the science of the fourth dimension, and it's going to consider a whole system, not part, not half, but the whole system. A chrononaut is a student of the technology of fourth dimensional time, which is also understood as the science and art of telepathy. We know, and we may have seen in the first part of this series, where the astronauts had different apparatuses to speak with each other when they put their helmets on, when they're out in space, outside of the capsule, doing their work or whatever they may be doing, and they have to communicate with each other. They're communicating not telepathically, but electronically. AI is helping them to communicate. When they get into the capsule, they may have to communicate. Are they communicating telepathically? No. They are still either hollering out to each other or they're using some type of AI device to speak with each other. So when we begin to say, well, what about the chrononaut? Because those things that I just mentioned is what an astronaut does. How is the chrononaut, communicating with each other? Are we communicating with each other? Are we even intending to communicate with each other? Because if we do, we're going to have to use a fourth dimensional science called chronomancy, and it involves telepathy. Do you have to be real close to each other to talk telepathy? No. Can I be on a whole other planet and you stay here on Earth and we do telepathy? Yes. You get where I'm coming from? Telepathy helps to close the distance when you have a relationship. And then we're going to see how this is going to work. Chronaut, the study of chronomancy. Chronomancy is divination of the best time to do something. When you get ready to time travel, you just start on right on up and go? No, you want to pick the best time to time travel. A lot of things come into play, and we're going to see what those things are. So first of all, let us define what is divination. It is the practice of seeking knowledge of the future or the unknown by supernatural means. So that means that somebody that has a crystal ball is a divination, and when you have the pendulums, those are practices of divination. You're looking into the future. You're looking for the unknown by supernatural means. So if you're a chrononaut, that means that you have to get your skills up on this. You don't necessarily have to go and get a tool, but you have this. This is an innate ability of all immortals. We have divination in our blood and our DNA, but are we using it? That's the question. Now, I mentioned telepathy. Let's define it. Telepathy is derived from the Greek terms tele, which is distance, and pathy, which is occurrence or feeling. Okay, notice occurrence or feeling. Occurrence. Let's just look at occurrence for a minute. We know that a lot of things occur outside of ourselves, and it usually starts from within, right? We feel, okay? Feelings usually happen right then and there in the present. Feeling is not something that you would focus in on that's in the past, okay? That's called an emotion. Emotions form memories. Memories form emotions. But it's something that's happening right then and there. That's a feeling, okay? So that's part of telepathy. And of course, somebody coined that term. But if the frequency of vibration is stepped up, then energy or information from other dimensions can come through us because we are cosmic telepathic mediums. When we say dimensions, what are dimensions? What are we talking about? Dimensions are modes of expressions or different grades of vibrations. Higher dimensions are assessed internally through the mind. So are you going to just pick up and go to another dimension without that mind being on a higher frequency? No. Internal thoughts, I want to say, in your mind is what's going to determine what dimension you can get to. Your mind has to be tuned. It has to be nourished. It has to be cleansed. It has to be, first of all, it has to have a mission. You have to have a goal. You have to be wanting to do something, and then you're going to have to prepare to do it. They say that the water seeks its own level or whatever. Well, it's the same with spirit. Spirit seeks its own level. You get that dimension up high, woo, then here it comes. And you won't have to worry about whether you're in another dimension or not, because you're going to feel that vibration. The third, fourth, and fifth dimensions self-communicate with each other through the 6+1 mental sphere that are congruent with the brain, etherically, and serves as the hardware of the mind. Each dimension is more powerful than the next and contains the dimensions before it. What's in those other dimensions? And that's a good question. So the first dimension is dealing with ethers. It also contains cells, talking about the first dimension, and organisms. So it is the realm of primal polarity. And these mechanisms are beneath the microscope, meaning that you won't be able to see these. Now the second time dimension, what's there? That's going to be the part-time. That when you get to the third time dimension, you got the atomic and the subatomic levels, which is matter. So that first dimension and second dimension is working to bring about the matter that you want in the third dimension. It is the organization of all the cellular and atomic life. So 3D space includes height, width, and depth. Fourth time dimension, what's in there? Well, it's going to include everything that we just talked about: the atomic, subatomic level of lower valence, reality of etheric matter, the imaginal realm, the hereafter, the non-material substance. So when we get to the fifth, the electronic dimension, it's the higher self. It's the divine plane where reincarnation no longer exists and the factor of time no longer operates, and the immortals, which we are, reside there. There's a lot of places to want to time travel, isn't it? But we need to know what's in at least the first 5 before we start saying we want to go to the 13th and 11th and all of that. Let's get an idea of what's going on beneath us, over us, and where we reside. So since we're talking about thoughts and how important they are, as well as the time frame to time travel, we know that thoughts are electronic. Actually, a thought is more than an invisible set of words, but rather an electronic line of force. Electronic lines of force represent different levels of consciousness. So how do our thoughts fit in with being a chrononaut? That's a good question. Do our thoughts and beliefs affect time travel? Absolutely. We all time travel every day, every plasma, we're time traveling. We're toggling back and forth between past and future in one quick moment. We watch the slideshow of our lives play out in an instance. Our brains are the potent projector there is, that, and they can't make a projector better than your brain, okay? Because your brain can fool you and make you think you're seeing something that you're not seeing. Or that's how magicians can get away with different tricks. So how important is it for us to know our brain, to know when it may trick us? or how we can trick the brain to get the result that we want. See, it goes both ways. So forget technology when you have this 3-pound organ that holds such power. Our brains can create thoughts that seem so real that we start believing them. We start living as our thoughts dictate we should. And we do all this. We can try to escape, but the lure of our time traveling brains beckons us back. The hollow mind perceiver is a function of extraterrestrial intelligence. It is what's generated outside of the planetary sphere for the purpose of activating the next stage of evolution. So astronauts have the AI communicative instruments to speak to each other and to control center. And we spoke about that earlier. How does the Chronaut communicate, with each other from the 4D holon to 4D holon? It will be through the noosphere, the Earth's thinking layer. Then we know that telepathic communication is the transference of thoughts between minds by some means other than normal sensory channels, speaking, music, sound. What if somebody cut our tongue out, God forbid? We'll still be able to communicate. What if we don't hear no more music anymore and they take away all the instruments? We can still communicate. What if sound is we don't hear nothing? You can still communicate. Through what? Through Earth's thinking layers, the noosphere. Telepathic communication can occur in many forms, such as words. Okay. Man, I just got a thought. I just read this word and it just came to me. That's telepathic communication. You see a picture, it takes you back to a time that you lived on the planet and blah, 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 blah. That's telepathy. Ideas, physical sensations, sounds, impressions, feelings. But there will come a time when the birds will fall from the trees, and we know that's happening now. The rivers will be poisoned, and that's happening now. And the wolves will die in the forests. All of this is happening now. But then the warriors of the rainbow will appear and save the world. That's a Cree Indian saying. But to generate a worldwide telepathic wave of love that encompasses the whole earth and all centennial beings, creating an interdimensional bridge and opening the stargate to other world systems. So we're going to stop it right here. So the next time we return, we'll talk about the side bank and the noosphere, and we'll pick it up from there. Peace to the gods.